This is a SandyBoy Productions podcast.
Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, where we help women remove the overwhelm of living their most holistic life. This is the place to find evidence-based nutrition tactics, healthy lifestyle and wellness tips, abundance mindset, and easily implementable low-tox living strategies so you can rise up to your full potential and protect your family's health. I'm your host, Stacey, certified holistic nutritionist and better living advocate. Now, let's get empowered with some simple swaps that make a big impact for optimal wellness.
Welcome to episode 76 of the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. If you like nutrition, you're going to love this episode. Thank you so much for being here in my ecosystem today. I hope that you are full of gratitude. I hope that you have stopped to think about what is going well in your life today. And I hope that you are feeling well in your own body. If you aren't, make sure that you hop on over to my website, The Urban Pharmacy. Click the Work On Me tab and see if joining Holistic Mama Society or working one-on-one would be something that could help you with your mindset, your mentality, your overall well-being, your mind-body connection, and so much more in the holistic realm. All right, let's get on to today's episode. It is with a lovely woman called Julieanna Hever, MS, RD, CPT, the plant-based dietitian. She has a BA in theater and an MS in nutrition, bridging her biggest passions for food, presenting, and helping people. She has authored 7 books, including the brand new Choose Your Now Diet, The Health Span Solution, The Plant-Based Nutrition Idiot's Guide, and The Vegetarian Diet. That's a tongue twister, sorry. And 2 peer-reviewed journal articles on plant-based nutrition for healthcare professionals. She is the host of the Choose Your Now podcast. And she was the host of What Would Julieanna Do? She gave a TEDx talk and instructed for the eCornell Plant-Based Nutrition Certification Program, which I am certified in. She appeared on the Dr. Oz Show, Harry, and the Steve Harvey Show. Julieanna speaks and consults with clients around the globe. Find her at plantbaseddietitian.com. Today, we talk about surprise, surprise, nutrition. We talk about the benefits of plants. We talk about how to optimize your plant-based diet and so much more. I think you're going to love this episode. If you do, make sure that you give us a review and that you share it on social media so that we can continue to grow and we can continue to expand this ever important message of eating more plants and living more healthy and more holistically with the world. All right, here is Julieanna. Enjoy. Julieanna Hever, welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very grateful for your presence and for your time and for your wisdom. This podcast is called The Urban Pharmacy because I like to help people understand the benefits of plants. And I think that you are one of the greatest to reach out to and ask for your advice because I think a lot of the times people are thrown off just on how easy it can be to switch to eating more plants. And I feel like you typically have good, sound answers when people have interviewed you. I've seen you on Chef AJ and more. And I think that it's just going to be good to hear from you. You have good insight. So can you tell us before I dig into some questions about yourself and how you got interested in plant-based nutrition in particular?
Well, my journey began a long, long time ago when I was a teenager, just kind of like digging into all research about diet and nutrition. And I was curious. And I stumbled upon John Robbins' book, Diet for New America. And it unseated everything I knew about food and where it came from and how it ended up on our plate. And I decided right then and there that I didn't want to contribute to what happened with animals. And so I decided I was going to be a vegetarian. I wasn't going to eat animals, but I didn't know what that meant at the time. And there was no internet back then that I had access to. And there weren't any like books out there, a lot of books on the subject. And so I was just omitting animal products. And of course, my parents were worried about me because they're good parents and they worry about their daughter getting enough nutrition. And they didn't know anything about being a veg. What is that? And so they introduced me, they took me out to dinner, and I call this my intervention, where they brought our friend who's a nurse, and she had me order a steak. It was a teriyaki steak with a pineapple ring on top, and proceeded to tell me about how, I'm going to be deficient in protein and iron, and that I have to have animals to survive. So of course I was scared back into eating it. And I remember I write about this in one of my books, The Vegetarian Diet, about that first bite of eating the steak after learning what I learned and how you can't unknow what you know. And of course, I went back to it because I'd always been eating that way. I grew up on a standard Western diet. And I kept wondering though, like, the vegetarians aren't dying off like flies. This isn't making the headlines, there's got to be more to the story. But I went back to my life, and, I went to undergrad, and I was an actress because I grew up in Los Angeles, and a lot of people here get into the acting world. And I was at an arts high school, and then I was studying acting in college. And I had my agents and my managers and all that. And at one point, one of my managers told me I needed to lose a few pounds, for the camera. And so I went back into digging into all of this nutrition. And then she sent me to a trainer. And so I went to this personal trainer, and I fell in love with personal training. So I decided to become a personal trainer. And so I was like, oh, that's a great way to, work while I'm, doing the acting thing on the side. And so I did. I became a trainer. And then after I graduated from undergrad, people were asking me about nutrition and what they should eat when they're doing my workouts. And I was like, I don't want to just spit back the information that I memorized in a chapter in my personal training book. I wanted to know why and what I was really going to say to them and what I would recommend, and really look at the science. So I immediately applied for graduate school in nutrition and fell in love with school for the first time in my life. And first time I was getting straight A's. I just love nutrition so much, learning about all the food science and, chemistry and biochem and microbiome and statistics and all of that. And once I finished, I was working full-time as a trainer, but once I finished grad school, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to look back at this whole vegetarian thing. There's, because I noticed some things during my education. Like I noticed that the recommendations to eat this many servings of dairy was in the small print at the bottom of the page, sponsored by the Dairy Council. And all these little things are like, there's more to this story. And when I dug back into the literature after I finished grad school, that was it. So I changed my diet to, it wasn't really called plant-based back then, but I stopped eating animal products and my health improved dramatically. And then I decided to implement this with my clients because I had become a dietitian at this point. And then that was it. I couldn't believe the results I got. And after that, I was asked to write my first book, and I was, going around the world speaking about this and interviewing and doing movies and TV, everything about plant-based. And then all of a sudden now it's a huge, big thing. And it's amazing how far it's come in the last 17 years.
It's so good. I was chatting with Rebecca from Perfect Foods. I'm not sure if you know who she is, but her parents started a wheatgrass business in New York 40 years ago, before all of this, came about. And now they're like part of the Hippocrates Health Institute and but see, I think that you're right. Like just in the last 17 years, I really kind of started learning about eating plants about 15 years ago. A friend of mine gave me Diet for a New America. She actually gave me that book. And then it was when Alicia Silverstone's book, of all people, speaking of California and LA and influencers, it was when her book called The Kind Diet came out. That's when I really started connecting the dots and understanding. It really wasn't much about nutrition, but it was more about the environment, animals, and okay, the steak story really, Julieanna, that's crazy. And I'm sorry that you went through that, but that is quite a story to help people feel like this is a journey that they can take and it doesn't have to be perfect. So when people come to you, what do you see people struggling with the most? I mean, you said that once you started eating plants exclusively and you you understood it, like everything changed. Like, did you lose the weight? Did you feel better?
Me personally?
Yes.
Me personally, I had lifelong sinus infections. Like I was always suffering with my sinuses, like horribly so. Like I was always taking Benadryl and falling asleep in class growing up. And those cleared up right away. For the first time, I tried everything. Same with, I had acne my entire life. I always struggled with my skin and that cleared up right away. Finally, like I tried everything for that too. My GI tract got better, just digestion, absorption got better. And I just felt better. It was just incredible. My performance, I think, improved. And I'd been a personal trainer for so many years and like so into fitness for so many years. And it just got better and easier to recover and just everything just got better. But then forget me, because that's just like minor. But I've worked with thousands of people one-on-one, and I don't know how many thousands of people in my audiences and through my books now and everything I've ever done. And the stories are just amazing. Like people reversing conditions that were not supposed to be reversible. Things that I didn't learn about in grad school, doctors don't learn about in med school, are possible to get off medications that people assume they're going to be on for the rest of their lives. They get off of those meds or at least reduce them. I mean, what I was taught in grad school was, and my clinical rotations was, to try to get these patients to not have to exacerbate their conditions, to not have to increase their medication dose, but to go backwards, like that's incredible, So
yeah,
the things I've seen just substantiate it. And I always love to say results are typical. You see those drug commercials where results are not typical. Results are typical. When you change your diet and eat whole food, plant-based, these things get better. And I've seen so many things happen over the years that it's not even well documented in the literature yet. It's that new, and it's still the literature is expanding like crazy. But what I see with my own eyes is just mind blowing. So besides the anecdote, the science is growing and the studies are happening, and every day something else comes out. It's really exciting.
Incredible. Yeah. Sorry, that question was kind of like twofold. I'm like, tell me about your patients and then tell me about yourself at the same time. So you hit both. Okay. So let's just get the elephant out of the room. Let's talk about protein. Like let's talk about that, because are you of the mindset, Julieanna, that, if you're eating sufficient calories that you're getting enough protein on a whole food plant-based diet, or do you think that we need to be focusing on these concentrated sources?
Well, it's so funny that is the elephant, and everyone asks this question still. I mean, like 17 years later, people are still concerned about protein. No matter what you say to them, people are always concerned about protein. And I'll never understand why. I've yet to see an actual legit protein deficiency I've been in the healthcare industry for like 25 years. I've never seen it. Like I've seen, maybe if there's like too few calories, even then, if you're eating whole foods, you can't not get enough. If you're eating maybe, white sugars and oils and you're eating a highly processed diet, okay, of course there's a problem. But people are not dropping out because of protein. It's not a thing. People are really overemphasizing it. And I work with a lot of athletes. I do a lot of sports nutrition. I've worked with professional athletes and all sorts of athletes. And it's just not a problem. If you eat the right foods and you stick to as whole as possible, you can't become deficient in protein. I mean, of course, there's micronutrient things to consider, but that's with any diet, because every diet has to be mindful. And if you're eating a mindful whole food plant-based diet, you can get your adequate amino acids. And that's what we need. And we don't need protein per se. We need amino acids. We need a few essential amino acids that we can't make in our own bodies, that we make the rest from them. So it's really super easy to do. But then I have a mnemonic called the 6 Daily Threes that I've published in several of my books now. It's on my website on plantbaseddietitian.com if you want to look at the image. And I prioritize foods based on the nutrition, like things that you want to make sure you try to prioritize in your day so that you're getting all of the unique nutrients that we need, that most people need, everyone needs, that are essential in a healthy diet. So one of those groups would be legumes, lentils, beans, peas. Hummus should be a food group, soy foods. And that's a good category to get the essential amino acids. And then I have a whole other category for nuts and seeds, because that's a whole other array of essential amino acids and other nutrients that are unique to nuts and seeds. So I have this way of looking at these 6 different food groups that are going to give you specific nutrients to help make sure you get everything you need. But protein is just not a problem. If you're getting, you're eating some legumes, or like broccoli has protein. People forget that. These amino acids, like all amino acids, start from plants. That's the original source of amino acids. We're just cutting out the middle animal and going directly to the source to get them packaged together with all these amazing phytonutrients and fibers and vitamins and minerals and all these wonderful things that are health promoting, as opposed to the amino acids packaged in animal products that are packaged together with heme iron and L-carnitine and, all these things that actually promote disease. So it's kind of like, where do you want to get your essential amino acids? You can get them either way. One is going to be more healthful and one is going to be more health damaging. So it seems kind of like a win-win situation to just choose whole plants.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I don't know if you know, but I just got back from Capitol Hill just a few months ago, advocating for better personal care product laws. Hopefully by now you know that I am affiliated with a B corporation called Beautycounter that puts equal emphasis on people, product, and planet. And their mission is to get safer products into the hands of everyone. And that is very important because there's very little to virtually no regulation in terms of personal care product safety and laws surrounding our toxic load when it comes to beauty products. So I had the fortune to be able to go there and speak with congressmen and congresswomen to help move this industry to a safer place. And I want to invite you to do this alongside of me. This work is super important, not only for the advocacy, but also to empower women and men and families to make safer choices. And regardless if you have tried Beautycounter or not, I highly suggest that you get on a call with me or text me at 317-520-2320 to chat about what this income and this impact can mean for your life. Now, before we get back to the episode, I want to be sure that you know that switching to safer personal care does not mean that your beauty products have to suck. It means that you can actually find really high performing makeup and skincare that actually gives you results, but is also better for the planet and of course for our health. And that is exactly what Beautycounter is doing. So if you are in the market to switch over to safer personal care and you have not done that yet, or if you have been looking into or are already in love with clean beauty, you need to try Beautycounter. I highly suggest that you try the Countertime Anti-Aging line. That is what I use. I use the All Bright products as well, which are vitamin C, and we're coming out with a new toner soon. The serum is incredible. And then I also use on a daily basis the Flawless in 5 cosmetic set. That is just like an easy get you out the door, no makeup look. It's breathable, it's buildable, it's beautiful, and I can help you customize your colors. Just message me on Instagram or again, text me at 317-520-2320 to get in touch with me for all of your Beautycounter questions. If you're a brand new client, use code CLEANFORALL30, all one word, on my website at beautycounter.com/Stacey Heine, or you can shop the link in the show notes. Join as an advocate, join as a member, buy as a client. No matter what you do, you're moving this industry to a safer place, and we need your voice and we need you to vote with your dollars. So back to the episode, but again, reach out to me if you have questions about this business opportunity or about these products, because both can change your life. All right, back to the show. Can you go a little bit deeper into the essential versus the non-essential amino acids so that people can understand that?
Sure. I mean, there's about 20 amino acids out there that we use in our body, and about 9 of them are essential that we need to get from our diet, meaning we can't produce them ourselves. Once we get those essential amino acids, our bodies can string them together. And, we break them all the proteins that we consume, we break down into peptides and then amino acids. And then it just sits there and pools up. And then when you need to string it together to make an eyelash or a fingernail or an organ or whatever, your body puts them together in that order and strings them together into the bigger proteins that it needs. But our bodies are incredibly efficient, incredibly brilliant. And as much as we try to outsmart our bodies, we can't. Our bodies got this. But they're not like, oh, you didn't get this amino acid in this dose today, better have some protein powder. Our body's like, no, I found some amino acid here and I'm going to string it together and put together whatever it needs. Our bodies are absolutely brilliant. And we think we can micromanage it, but we never have been successful at doing so.
I love it. Okay. So as we're speaking about the things that are necessary to consume, can you talk a little bit about cholesterol? Is actually consuming cholesterol purposefully damaging to our body?
Right. Well, cholesterol is something that animals create with their livers. Our livers come together. We produce cholesterol in our body. We need it for certain hormones, hormone production, these different things in our different functions in our body. And we get it only if we eat another animal that created it in their liver and has it in their circulation. And our bodies make enough that we need. Like, our bodies will produce as much as we need to make all those hormones and do all the functions that cholesterol is required for. Taking in exogenous cholesterol from eating an animal product, which is the only place you can get cholesterol, has been shown to be health damaging, especially when it's packaged, and it almost always is, with saturated fat. And this is the thing that these compounds lead to atherosclerosis, which leads to cardiovascular disease, and cardiovascular disease is still the number one cause of death around the world. So most of us get too much cholesterol. We don't need to take any cholesterol in. Most of us get too much saturated fat. The best way to clear up all of that is just to avoid animal products.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you spoke a little bit about micronutrients. Julieanna, what do we need in terms of vitamins on a daily basis? Regardless of diet, regardless of plant-based or not plant-based, do you think that B12 should be taken by everyone, even people who are consuming animals?
Well, the evidence is very clear on that. And the Institute of Medicine recommends that everyone over the age of 50 consumes B12 supplementally, because we're not going to absorb it better. Like, after 50, our bodies lower the amount of acid that it produces. There's a compound in the gut that's produced that helps absorb it. And so that leads to like less absorption of B12. And so it's called intrinsic factor. And so because we're decreasing our production of that and we're not able to absorb it, anyone over the age of 50 needs to supplement. And then anyone on a plant-based diet is not getting a direct source of B12. So everyone on a plant-based diet should supplement with B12, and anyone over the age of 50, no matter what they're eating, should also supplement with B12. It's really, really important. There, you see a big prevalence of deficiency in vegans because they're just thinking, oh, I'll get plenty of it, and oh, I'm getting it from my fortified foods. But the safest, most effective, reliable way to avoid a B12 deficiency is to take it supplementally. And the weird thing, it's a weird vitamin, because I always say it's a finicky vitamin with an attitude problem, because it requires a certain dosing to be absorbed well, and it lasts in your bloodstream for a while, so you won't know you're deficient in it. And there's a lag time where it lasts in your blood, so that you could end up by the time you know you're deficient in it, it could be too late. So I've heard there's cases where people show up with sometimes irreversible neurological damage because of B12 deficiency, but they didn't know it until that damage was already done. So it's really important to preempt that and make sure you're just supplementing with the right dose of B12, which, by the way, also in my books and on my website, to get the actual ideal dosing numbers, because there's 3 kind of ideal ways to take it, definitely important. And the other nutrient that's similar is vitamin D. That doesn't matter what diet you're on. We are supposed to get vitamin D from the sun, absorbed from the UVB rays into our skin, and then, produced through the liver and kidneys into the active form of vitamin D. And somehow around the world, we're seeing a worldwide, high prevalence of D deficiency. But unlike B12, vitamin D is a fat soluble nutrient, so we need to be more mindful of it. So I have my clients actually test their blood to know their blood levels before determining supplementation. The B12 supplement is kind of like, this is a really great way to dose it. It's water soluble. You can't have too much of it. So you're better to err on the safety of just having enough of B12. But with D, it's good to just kind of monitor. But those are 2 nutrients that across the board, doesn't really matter what your diet is, that you should consider in terms of supplementing.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So staying on the supplementation, for mamas that want to raise their babies plant-based and for some reason are not able to breastfeed, what are your suggestions on that? Do you suggest, like, I shouldn't be dropping names, but like Kate Farms, like, are you suggesting like soy-based formulas? What do you suggest for moms that want to keep their kids totally plant-based? And also what specific vitamins are you thinking that they need?
Right. Actually, that's my client. Right after we hang up, I have a client that's dealing with that exact issue, and she's raising her baby vegan. And absolutely, if you can't breastfeed, it is important to use formula, not a plant milk. that is so ridiculous. You hear these stories in the news that vegan parents almost killed their child, and it has nothing to do with the vegan diet. It's just that they were not using a formula. And this happens with non-vegans too, but it always gets into the media when it comes to vegans. So yes, definitely formula, if not breast milk. And then the formulas that are available now, I still think there's only a soy-based formula, which is what the choice would be. If it's between that and dairy, then if you want to be vegan, then you have to pick the soy choice. And then in terms of nutrients, it's the same thing. You could do a multi. You want to make sure the baby's getting B12. If not through the breast milk, then you're going to have to supplement it. But a lot of these formulations are take that into consideration, and you don't need to add additional supplementation. So of course, this is something to ask the doctor, look at the specific formula, or work with the dietitian, which is what I'm going to do after this call, is to kind of know exactly what nutrients you need to give to the baby. And then as you wean the baby and the baby becomes more reliant on foods, you replace the liquid with the foods, and you're able to, branch out and make the diet more varied and nutrient dense and broad. But that takes, a period of a couple of years or more to expand into a food-based diet. So at first, it's definitely formula if it's not breast milk.
Okay, love that. Thank you. So can you explain why somebody may not want to raise their child on dairy? Like, what complications do you see children having from the consumption of dairy milk?
Well, it's so interesting because I never thought about this until I read that book, that we are like the only species that gives our babies the milk of another species. And we're the only species that drinks milk after weaning. Like, it doesn't even seem natural if you think about it, anthropologically, and it's weird. It's so interesting, but even scientifically. So we see an increased risk for type 1 diabetes with babies that are consuming dairy. We see higher incidence of cancer. There's like associations between cancer risk and dairy consumption, and, inflammation. I mean, generally speaking, I can't tell you. The first thing I tell people what to do if they want to make one choice in their diet to get healthier, it's cut out dairy. It is so inflammatory, and it is hormonally active. We were talking about formulas before, and a lot of people are worried about giving their baby soy formula because of the hormones, but that's amazing because dairy actually is active hormonally. It actually has estradiol, compounds that are actually mammalian hormones, rather than soy, which is a plant-based thing that doesn't have the same kind of impact on our body. So having that hormonal reaction, it increases our IGF-1 and our growth hormone in our bodies. And because of that increases our risk for cancer. So highly recommend not using dairy. I can't tell you how many people have solved, like me, with my sinuses, and then a lot of people with their sinuses and allergies and asthma and eczema, a lot of autoimmune conditions that improve with just getting rid of dairy. Just that alone has made a significant difference in so many people's lives.
Mm-hmm. So for children, when a parent wants to help their child get off of dairy, do you suggest, getting like a soy milk that does have like sugar in it, so that it's palatable? Or do you suggest buying the unsweet versions? Are there any favorite types of plant milks that you suggest for people?
Oh yeah, no, for plant milks, I suggest always unsweetened because you don't want the sugar. And, if you're shifting from dairy to a plant milk, I don't think you would notice a difference in sweetness, but there's definitely a different flavor. But everything about your food and your palate is adjustable, and it just changes when you get used to it and you acclimate to it. And then you start to love things. But there's so many plant milks now, it's unbelievable. So I always recommend unsweetened. And then if you want the flavor, it depends on what you're using it for. I always get a non-flavored, unsweetened version so that I could use it in all my recipes. But there's so many great ones, and they have just different things nutritionally and culinarily speaking. So it depends on what purpose it's serving. Soy has a little bit more amino acids and some essential fats. And then the almond milk is not so nutritious. Most of them are fortified with B12, D, and calcium. So you'll get what you would get in a dairy milk without all the harmful hormones. So just looking for fortified, unless you're making it at home, and then you always have to consider calcium and vitamin D. Like any diet, you need to be mindful of. So just saying, oh, I'm vegan, and all of a sudden I have to be super mindful of what I eat is a little bit, it just doesn't even make sense. People do that all the time, and if you look at the standard Western diet, it's not like people are, getting their folate and vitamin C and fiber from eating fast food and all the junk food. So it's so interesting how that always gets paralleled, and it's just not. But plant milks, there's so many options. It just depends on what you're using it for.
Great. So unsweetened. And what do you think about the gums added to them? Do you think we should try to avoid them?
I'm not so worried about those. Again, like if you're switching from dairy to a plant milk, the gum is nothing compared to the dairy. Yeah. So, and I don't recommend people are chugging down or relying heavily on plant milks as nutrition, like even with milk or milk. I don't think any of that's really actually supposed to be what we use as food, especially as adults and even as older children. So I'm not really concerned about those ingredients right now. I mean, there's certain potential risks, but not substantial. And the dose makes the poison.
Yeah. And there's no fiber in them. So that's a great point to make, really. Like we shouldn't be drinking glasses of these anyway. So you were talking about recipes, and can you give us some tips on like, what are your top 3 favorite recipes to help families that want to eat more whole food, plant-based? Maybe they're just like, okay, I can do 3 days a week for dinner. Like, let's try to do that. What do you think is going to be the most yummy and convincing for families that might otherwise not be so open to this?
I always tell people to look for their favorite foods, because we grew up eating foods that were plant-based without calling it plant-based, like spaghetti and marinara sauce, or, a veggie bowl, like rice and bean burrito kind of a thing. Or there's so many things that we grew up eating, P&J, oatmeal, fruit salad. There's so many things that we've eaten without animal products. Just, we didn't think about it like that. So find your favorite recipes, and you could just, it's at the touch of your fingers. You can go on Google and just like type in plant-based, fill in the recipe you want to make, plant-based lasagna, plant-based, whatever it is that you love, stroganoff, whatever it is, and whatever comes to mind, curries, there's everything. You can make everything plant-based and delicious. And so find your favorite things. I'm a big believer, like when I have guests coming, I like to make lots of different foods. So I'm always trying to, make people go, oh my gosh, there was no animal products in that. And they're like, leave my house really full and happy, because there's so much deliciousness on the table that they didn't even realize that they were missing out. But, I love to make a big chili with some cornbread and a big, hearty salad with a really delicious creamy dressing that's like a nut seed based dressing that I make from scratch. You can make anything. I make big lasagnas. I have a spaghetti squash lasagna. I just had the last book published in December where I did a spaghetti squash lasagna. There's so many things. I don't even know where to begin. You could do anything plant-based, just something you love. People love chilies and chowders and stews and veggie sushi, and I love Mexican food, so I'll make a big Mexican feast. Or I was teaching cooking and nutrition in Thailand for a while, and so I love making Thai food, curries and noodle dishes. People love pasta. It just go with what your family is used to, whatever your traditional recipes are, and you could just try making them plant-based, and you'd be surprised that sometimes people won't even miss the meat.
Love it. Okay. So I had a friend ask me, is it normal to have gas when they switch to a plant-based diet? Here's what I said. I said, try to chew your food more and go low and slow. You can't replace a steak with like a can of beans and expect to not have gas, right? Like, but I do think that people, since we're also deficient in fiber, Julieanna, like 97% of us aren't getting enough. And then all of a sudden, if you want to go exclusively plant-based, that's kind of hard on the gut. So, I mean, do you suggest to people what I said, or do you suggest maybe they're using like more pastas versus just a whole grain and kind of like slowly incorporating that way? Like, what do you say for people?
Absolutely. What you said is spot on. And it's actually 97% of people don't even get the minimum recommended. So remember that fiber comes only from plants. Only. Like, you can't get fiber from animal products. It's only found in plants. And the wholer you go, the more intact the fiber. However, that's the most important thing you can do for your body, because you want to have a really super healthy microbiome. Because if you have a healthy, happy microbiome, all of those bacteria in your gut, then you're going to improve your immune system and you're going to reduce your risk for chronic disease. And it's like a win-win situation. And you feed the good bacteria with fiber. They act as prebiotics for those bugs. And so you just have to either slowly wean into it. Definitely chewing is important. We eat too fast and gulp in all that air, and that doesn't help. But it's the fiber itself will cause those things to happen. And it's just like you said, I like it slow and slow. It's just like, be consistent. Just, get stepwise into it, and it will pass. It will get easier. Your body will adjust. as your microbiome changes, you're going to get rid of the bad bacteria, you're going to have more of the good bacteria. And once it gets used to eating that fuel, it's going to, acclimate and normalize, and you won't experience that anymore. So stay the course. Don't get scared off and go back and forth, because that'll make you crazy and it won't get better like that. Just be consistent and have patience.
Awesome. Great. Okay. 2 more questions. Okay. So the first one is, we already talked about meals, like that spaghetti squash lasagna, like my mouth literally is watering. I don't know. I need to go get your book like now and get that recipe, because that sounds so good. Snacks, especially, I mean, anything goes for adults and children. Do you have favorite nutritionally packed snacks that people can either buy that are already pre-made, or that you suggest people making maybe in bulk to help their life be easier, but making sure that they're getting awesome nutrition?
Well, sure. I also try to take away breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, desserts. Like in my last book, I had soup, salad, sides, and sweets. And this newest book has pots, pans, plates, and power bowls, because it doesn't matter what you eat, when, or how much. Like a snack, does that mean it's a little bit less? It's just an eating opportunity. So it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to only have pancakes at breakfast. You could have them at night. You could have salad first thing in the morning. Like there's no rules. We've made all of that up. So that said, there are things that you would consider snacky types of food. So, especially for families, I always say hummus should be a food group. So I always have some fresh made hummus in my fridge, and then chopped veggies or some whole grains. Sprouted crackers are my favorite kind of way to eat those. I always entertain and have at least 2 different varieties of hummus on my table, and with all that, like the crudité and stuff to dip in there. Guacamole makes a great dip or spread. You can use hummus or guacamole as a dip or a spread for sandwiches, or on those crackers or something like that. Those are really fun. I always love to have, like little soups and stews and chilies and stuff where you could just have a little bit, and they're so satiating. Or then if you're on the go, you could do something like a trail mix with nuts and seeds and some dried fruits. Fruit is the nature's to go food. It just already prepackaged. You just take it on the go and boom, you've got your food. Delicious, right? Most people love fruit. It doesn't really matter what you eat. It just, whatever you love to eat, bring it with you. It's fun to have these little containers where you can pack up whatever you want and bring them with you. But you could do little wraps. You could do little sushi rolls. Those are fun to take on the go. I make noritos, which is like a nori roll that I wrap into a burrito, and I don't even cut it. So you could just eat those. Those are really easy to wrap and go. There's no limit. Yeah. Lots of deliciousness.
Perfect. So good. And fruit really, truly is the best. And I like your thought there, like whatever you love, bring it with you, and you're set up for success. Okay. So much good insight. And I love this. I think that this is going to help people just take a step into the green side and incorporate more plants into their life. So here's my last question for you, Julieanna. And it is something that I ask every guest on the podcast. What does holistic living mean to you?
It means looking at everything. And so my podcast is called Choose You Now. And it's about empowering yourself and making decisions that serve your plans. So that includes, of course, diet is probably the most important. The research seems to show that diet is number 1, but then also looking at your movement activity levels and your sleep and your stress levels, and, minimizing your exposure to toxins as much as you can. I mean, we can't live in a bubble, but, the people in your lives, the people that you associate with, the ones that are really healthy and that feed your soul, and doing things that take care of you are really, it's really, infinite. There's so many different things to look at. So it's, instead of looking at one thing and one little cell on your body and analyzing how you could best fix it, it's about looking at everything and being present in the moment to make those decisions that are going to best serve you, and know what it is that's best serving you, and continue to do more of that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all of your education and for your energy. You have such amazing energy, and we will make sure to leave any links in the show notes to your awesome books. Where can people find you so that they can stay connected?
Well, thank you so much, Stacey, for all your kind words and for having me. And you can find me at plantbaseddietitian.com. And that's, everything is there. I'm on all the social media, and my books are all linked there. So just plantbaseddietitian.com is a perfect place to find me.
Perfect. We can't wait to stay connected. Thank you so much and have a great day, my friend. Take care.
Thank you, you too.
I'm over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of The Urban Pharmacy. For today's show notes, head on over to theurbanpharmacy.com and be sure to join us inside our private Facebook group called The Urban Pharmacy, where we share inspiration, live trainings, and holistic living tips to help you build community and the healthy lifestyle that you've always wanted. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Before we connect again on the next show, follow me on Instagram at The Urban Pharmacy. That's urban with an H and pharmacy with an F. And I can't wait to hear your wellness journey as we get to know each other better. You know, there's truly no better time than now to level up your life, and I am so proud of you for showing up today. Until next time, be well, Health Crusader.